Hey, fellow evolvers, Tina here, and welcome back. If you're new here, this is the space where we keep it real, raw, and honest. I'm not here because I've got it all figured out. I'm here because I don't. I'm still evolving, still healing, still learning how to choose myself every damn day. And maybe you are too. Because growth, it's not some clean step-by-step process. It's a wild, unpredictable ride full of highs, lows, breakthroughs, and breakdowns. Am I right? Some days you feel unstoppable, and other days you're just barely getting by. But no matter what your journey looks like, I want you to hear this. You're not alone, and I am right here walking beside you. And here's what I know for sure. You're not here by accident. You're here because something inside you knows it's time to do life differently. You've spent years holding it together, always showing up for everyone else, but now you're finally ready to show up for yourself. This space is for the women who are done pouring from an empty cup, who are tired of being everything to everyone but themselves. It's for the ones who feel that quiet, deep down pull, the knowing that there's more to life than just surviving, more joy, more peace, and more purpose. And you're done waiting for permission. You're ready to claim it loudly, fully, and without apology. And that brings me to today's episode. We need to talk about something that silently holds so many of us back. Something we don't always realize we're doing, but it keeps us stuck, angry and resentful or ashamed. It's called blame. Blaming other people, blaming yourself, blaming the past. But let's be honest, blame can feel justified. Sometimes it is justified, but here's the truth no one really talks about. Blame might feel powerful in the moment, but it will steal your power in the long run. So today, we're going there. We're going to talk about how to stop blaming others, yourself, or the past so you can finally move forward because you deserve peace, you deserve freedom, and you don't need to wait on anyone else to give it to you. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's get into today's episode. Okay, let's be honest. Blame feels good sometimes, doesn't it? It gives us something to point at, someone to hold responsible, and some reason to explain why we feel the way we do. Statements like, if he hadn't treated me like that, or if they would have just supported me, or if I hadn't wasted all those years. And sometimes those things are true. You were mistreated. You were unsupported. And you did lose years trying to hold something together that was falling apart. But here's the thing I had to learn the hard way. Blame might feel like a release, but it becomes a trap because the longer you sit in it, the more it robs you of the only thing that can actually move you forward, and that's your power. Blame keeps your energy wrapped around the pain instead of your progress. It anchors you to the past and convinces you that freedom only comes when someone else changes, apologizes, or finally sees your side. But what if that never happens? What if the closure you're waiting on is the thing that is keeping you stuck? Because blame is sneaky. It's disguised itself as truth. It can even sound like self-projection, okay? I'm not blaming, I'm just stating what happened. I'm just being real, okay? But here's what I want you to sit with. There is a huge difference between acknowledging your pain and becoming a prisoner of it. You can tell your story without living inside the hurt. You can name what someone did and still choose not to carry it with you anymore. Because, girl, the truth is, blame is loud, but it's not healing. And if you've been sitting in that cycle, waiting for someone to fix it, take responsibility, or feel bad enough to make it right, let me say this with absolute love. You don't need their apology to heal. What you need is your permission to move forward. Okay? So let's just flip the script here for a minute, because as much as we talk about blaming others, there is a quieter kind of blame a lot of women carry, and it's called self-blame. And let me tell you, that one cuts super deep for me. It sounds like things like, I should have known better. Why did I let that happen to me? It's my fault for staying way too long. Maybe I'm the reason they treated me like that. Does that sound familiar? We think we're holding ourselves accountable, but what we're really doing is replaying the pain like a broken record. And here's the truth. Self-blame doesn't make you more responsible. It just makes you more resentful towards yourself. You start questioning your worth, your choices, your ability to even trust yourself. And the more you do that, the harder it becomes to move forward, because now you're not just carrying what happened, you're carrying shame on top of all of it. So let me say something directly to the woman who's been blaming herself for the things she didn't know or didn't do or didn't walk away from sooner. You were doing the best you could with what you knew at the time. You didn't stay because you were weak. You stayed because you were loyal. You didn't keep quiet because you had nothing to say. You stayed quiet because you didn't feel safe enough to speak up. And you didn't lose yourself on purpose. You were surviving. And now you're waking up. You're seeing things differently. That doesn't make you foolish. That makes you powerful, because realizing the truth, it's better than not seeing it at all. Self-blame convinces us that punishing yourself is the path to healing. But healing doesn't come through punishment. It comes through compassion, through looking at versions of yourself and saying things like, I get why you did what you did. I understand why you held on so long. And I love you enough to do it differently now that I know better. So here's the thing most people don't realize. Blame has a price. And sis, it is super expensive. It might not show up in your bank statement, but it will cost you your peace, your power, your presence. And let me break that down, okay? Blame cost you your peace, because every time you replay what happened, what they said, what they did, how they let you down, you stir it all back up again. You relive the hurt. You re-feel the betrayal. You open the wounds back up again. And you know what? That's not peace. That's emotionally self-harm disguised as reflections. Blame costs you your power, because as long as someone else is responsible for how you feel, then someone else is in control of your healing. Think about that. If they have to change for you to feel better, if they have to apologize before you can move on, then your freedom is in their hands. And your healing was never meant to depend on anyone else's behavior. Now, blame costs you your presence, because it keeps you living in the past, mentally trapped in moments that already happened, in conversations that have already ended, in relationships that no longer exist, okay? You miss the life happening right now because your energy is still tied to the versions of you who was hurt. And listen, I get it, okay? What happened to you matters. And what you went through was not okay. But you staying stuck in that story doesn't make it right. It just makes it harder for you to write the next chapter. So here's the thing. Blame feels like protection, but it's actually a prison. And the key isn't waiting for someone else to set you free. The key is already in your hand. So the real question becomes, are you ready to stop pointing fingers and start taking your power back? Let's talk about what really changes everything, okay? The moment when you stop waiting for someone else to fix what broke you and you decide to start healing. Here's the shift that changes everything, okay? Blame says they're responsible for how I feel, but healing says I'm responsible for what I do with it now. That right there, that's your power. That's the moment you stop waiting for closure, for apologies, for the pain to magically disappear. Because let's be real, some people are never going to apologize. Some won't even acknowledge the damage they caused. And some chapters just won't ever make perfect sense ever. But your healing doesn't depend on them at all. It depends on you. So let me just get personal for a second. For the longest time, I blamed my husband for my unhappiness. I always thought, like, if he would just listen, if he could just change, if he didn't do that, I wouldn't feel this way. Blame became literally my coping mechanism. It gave me something to point at, something outside of myself, but it wasn't helping. It was literally hurting. It kept us disconnected, stuck in a cycle where he felt like he could never win. And I felt emotionally abandoned. And truthfully, I was abandoning myself. I was waiting on him to fix what I hadn't even fully faced. And it wasn't until I got honest with me, that everything shifted. I had to ask myself, what am I avoiding by blaming him? What pain am I deflecting? And what responsibility am I scared to take? So why do we blame, especially the people we love? Because blame feels safer than vulnerability? Yeah, for sure. It's a defense mechanism. When we feel powerless, our nervous system searches for control, and blame offers that illusion. Instead of saying, hey, I feel invisible, we lash out. You never listen to me. Instead of whispering, I'm scared, I'm not enough, we shout, you don't care about me. Blame is a shortcut that leads literally nowhere. It protects us from the pain in the moment, but it keeps us stuck from moving forward. It literally builds walls, not bridges, okay? So if you've been blaming someone, especially your partner, just pause. There's likely something deeper underneath it. A wound, a fear, a need for safety, connection, or maybe validation. Getting curious about that is like where the healing really begins. It's where the communication can soften. It's where the walls start to come down and real intimacy can finally rise. That's the shift that changes everything. The one where you stop just surviving and you actually start evolving. Now that we've unpacked what blame really is, why we do it, how it shows up, and what it cost us, let's talk about how to actually move forward. Because awareness is one thing, but having the tools that will help you shift from stuck to empowered, that is the main purpose. So, here are 3 ways to just start releasing the blame, whether it's towards others, yourself, or the past. 1, name what's underneath the blame. And I know that might be a little hard to do, but blame is rarely the root emotion. It's literally masked underneath things like grief, shame, fear, disappointment, or just pure powerlessness. So ask yourself this: what am I actually feeling right now that's triggering this blame? You might discover that you don't really need to blame someone. You just need to acknowledge how deeply you were hurt. So naming that real emotion is the first step to releasing it. 2, speak to your inner child instead of attacking her. And I know that sounds like a little strange, but when we blame ourselves, we often talk to ourselves like the harshest critic in the room. I should have known better. Why did I stay so long? I was so fucking stupid. But here's the thing, okay? That version of you was just trying to survive. She stayed because she didn't feel safe to leave. She kept quiet because she was conditioned to. She tolerated things because she was never taught she could do anything different. So instead of attacking her, talk to her with compassion. Like, you were doing the best you could. You were trying to protect yourself, and I love you for making it through. That little slight shift, that's what will help you stop living in shame and start living in your truth. 3, set a new intention that aligns with your healing, because blame keeps you locked in to what was, but healing starts with what will be. So you ask yourself, what do I want to feel instead of this? Or what action would the future version of me take? You don't have to overhaul your life overnight, but you can start with one small intentional shift. Maybe that means not reacting the way you always have, or maybe it just means journaling instead of lashing out or fighting back. Maybe it means saying, I don't want to live in that story anymore. Even the smallest act of self-awareness is a step toward freedom. You don't have to have all the answers, okay? You just have to be willing to stop handing your power to the past. You are allowed to let go. You are allowed to move on. And you are allowed to choose peace, even if the people who hurt you never make it right. So, let's get honest before we wrap things up. Blame isn't easy, okay? But healing, that takes courage. It's not about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to do something different with your pain. So if you've been carrying the weight of blame for someone else, for yourself, or for the past that you can't change, this is your moment. Not to erase what happened, but to decide what happens next. You're not too late, you're not too much, and you're not too far gone to start over. You get to say things like, you know what? I've carried this long enough. I've blamed long enough. Now I choose peace. Now I choose me. That's what it means to evolve. Not because you've arrived, but because you're done abandoning yourself on the way there. That's it. That's a wrap on the episode today. And if this episode hit home, email me at talk@evolvingwithtina.com. I'd love to hear from you. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, someone who's still carrying blame or shame, send this to her. Let her know she's not alone. And most of all, remember, you are not defined by your past. You are not stuck in your story, and you are evolving. So until next time, my fellow evolvers, keep evolving, keep glowing, and never stop showing up for yourself because you matter. Much love.